I'm going to welcome onto the stage first is Alex Silva, Director of Solutions Engineering at Zion and Zion. And John Spencer, who is the Director of Digital Strategy at Zion and Zion. And with that, Alex, the power of the clicker.
Thank you. With great power comes great responsibility. Okay, well, let's get started. I think John and I can start with some introductions. So, as you saw, my name and my title. So, hi, I'm Alex Silva. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering at Zion and Zion. John and myself are members of our Center of CDP Excellence. I've been a part of numerous TLM implementations over the years, ranging across their suite of products, and I've seen firsthand what it takes to have a successful TLM implementation, and I'm going to share some of those insights with you today.
Hey, good morning, guys. John Spencer, Director of Digital Strategy at Zion and Zion. So my background is heavily rooted in paid media. I've spent the last 4 years working with clients in integrating CDP with marketing strategy and really focusing on creating holistic omni-channel customer experiences. So a lot of that bleeds over into what we're going to talk about today with CAPI. So very excited to dig in.
Yeah, with that said, let's jump in. So, as we delve into the ever-evolving world of digital marketing, it's crucial that we address some of the most impactful technologies shaping our digital strategies today. And as you've heard, conversion APIs, better known as CAPI, is one of those technologies. CAPI is an extremely powerful tool, but its implementations is not without its own unique set of challenges. So that's what we're here to share with you today. In this presentation, we'll give you some insights about how to overcome those challenges and arm you and your organization with the ability to excel within your own implementation. So this presentation is not just for those who have or have not implemented CAPI, it's for everyone. So for those who have implemented CAPI, this is going to be a way to maximize that ROI and further evolve your strategies. And if you haven't implemented CAPI, you're at the right place because this is going to be a roadmap for success, giving you the tools and insights to properly integrate and optimize CAPI into your current marketing tools.
Awesome. Well, before we dig in any further, I actually want to take a quick survey of the room. Could I get a show of hands of who here has implemented CAPI, worked on a team that implemented CAPI, or led a team that worked on CAPI? All right, I love it. We got a good, diverse mix of folks in here. So today's conversation is very much focused on advanced concepts. It's not so much like a CAPI 101. So we're going to be digging into some really tangible value that you guys can take back to your organizations to optimize your CAPI implementation and maximize your ROI. So let's start with kind of where we're at. So why we're up here today. So conversion APIs have become really the go-to technology to address signal loss, right? We're in a landscape right now where signals are degrading, third-party cookies are degrading, they'll eventually be gone. Conversion APIs have emerged as the reliable technology to maintain effective customer experience, maintain accuracy in event measurement, maintain accuracy in reporting, and maintain accuracy in attribution. So there's really no question or argument on the value. I think we're all aligned on that. Really, though, what we're digging into is organizations often experience missteps and get the implementation wrong. So we're gonna dive into some of those details and hopefully give you some information to take back to your organization to address and really look at your implementations. So we're setting out to answer really one question. It's actually two. First is, what are the common hurdles that organizations are facing with CAPI implementations? And second, how can we help you recognize those, address those, fix those to get maximum ROI out of your investment? So a little bit of background on us as an organization. We've worked with a diverse set of organizations across different verticals. We've done everything from implementations. We've come in as consultants to weigh in on best practices. And we've done many conversion API audits and kind of scoring activities. So through this, we've seen 4 common themes rear their head, like over and over again in a lot of conversion API implementation and setup. Those four, as you'll see, are, well, one, it's PII deficiency. Two, it's the issue of event ID errors. Three, it's client-side event flaws. And four, it's resource deficiency. So we're going to go through the nature of each one of these in this presentation. We'll dig through some details and give you guys some examples and tangible things to take back to address these and overcome these. All right. The first thing that we wanted to note and cover is the issue of PII deficiency. We found that 93% of the organizations that we're interacting with and working with are suffering from what we call PII deficiency. Just want to pause and take a quick note. Customer consent is required when you're doing CAPI implementations. It's no different than using customer information in other contextual marketing. So consent is very important. That said, highly effective CAPI implementations really do require what we're calling PII. So we found a lot of organizations actually kind of overlook and actually miss this step. So some organizations are getting it partially right. We'll find that some organizations are looking at and capturing, for example, a customer email on a conversion event that's available, but they're missing other PII, like first name, last name, zip code, phone number, et cetera, that actually do add value to success metrics in Conversion API. And then in other instances, we found that some organizations just kind of miss this altogether. So we'll dig into what that is on our next slide if we want to go through it. We found that PII deficiency actually starts primarily on the client side. So client-side tracking inadequacies often are manifested first, and that's where the problem we've seen actually start. So I'm sure most of you guys know client-side tags for the last 5, 6, 10 years haven't really required what we're calling PII to operate effectively, right? So these tags have used first-party cookies, third-party cookies, IP addresses, user agents, et cetera, and there's been no problem. We all know that that's changed. We're in the era of signal loss. So PII in the context of passing PII through event parameters is very important in CAPI success. So the first step that we usually recommend an organization to take as they're looking at their CAPI implementation and going through the steps is look at the web pages that you're firing your conversion events on. Make sure that you have a data layer in place and data layer variables in place to capture and use that customer information when it's appropriate. And I do want to note, when we talk about PII, right, it's always going to be hashed. Like as we're sending it through these events as event parameters, we're not sending raw PII through, it's always going to be hashed. The second step that we really recommend people take a look at and pause on is the client-side tags themselves. Go into your tag management system, make sure your tags are set up to actually collect customer information on pages when it's available. Go into your marketing platforms like Meta, TikTok, et cetera. Take a look at the pixel settings and make sure that you have advanced matching on, for example, to automatically collect and use customer information when it's available. So regardless of the platform, Meta, TikTok, any paid media platform really does rely on high quality signals in events like email address, phone number, et cetera. All of that relates to and drives what we call event match quality or signal resilience. All of that information is used and weighted in a highly effective conversion API implementation.
Great, thank you, John. Now that we know the pervasiveness of PII deficiencies, let's look at another crucial aspect that often goes unchecked. That's going to be event ID errors. We found that 82% of CAPI implementations suffered from event ID errors. It's important to note when we're talking about event ID errors, we're specifically talking about online conversions. So those conversions that are happening on your website data source. So let's talk about the role of event ID within CAPI. So For CAPI implementations, we know we're sending in a client-side and a server-side event. And we need to be able to tell the vendor platforms, despite the two events, that we are talking about a singular conversion. And that's where event IDs come into place. So event IDs are a mechanism for deduplication. Event IDs are incredibly simple. So it's just an additional parameter that we're sending on the client-side and the server-side event. The criteria for event IDs is incredibly straightforward, but it's crucial. It needs to be one of two things. It needs to be unique, and it needs to be identical. So let's give some examples here to paint this a little bit further. So let's say you have an e-commerce website and you have a standard conversion like a purchase conversion. Luckily for us, within a purchase conversion, you're likely to have a data point available within your data set that we can leverage as an event ID. Something like an order ID is gonna work incredibly well here because it's already inherently unique. Although if we apply this logic to other conversions that happen on your website, let's say like add to cart or product detail page view, you might have a unique ID, but that's more to probably be unique to your e-commerce ecosystem than those individual conversions. So we could leverage something like an order ID, but let's combine it with something like a randomized number to accomplish that criteria. And then on the other side, it needs to be identical. So now that we have the event ID in place, let's make sure it's shared between the client side and the server side. Those need to be one-to-one, because event IDs that are missing or inconsistent are gonna lead to things like deduplication failure, which we wanna avoid at all cost. So deduplication failure is a concern just because it can inflate your campaign metrics and distort your data analysis. So inflated metrics can lead to things like misguided strategies and budget misallocations. Let's imagine you have a campaign that you think is performing twice as well when actually it's a sign that there are duplicate event IDs because of deduplication failure. Great. With that, now that we understand the complexities and repercussions of event IDs, let's go on to our next point, which is client-side event flaws. So we could see how data inaccuracies not only undermine our data integrity, but also signal bigger issues within our tracking infrastructure. We found that 71% of CAPI implementations also suffer from client-side event flaws. Once again, we're talking about client-side here, so this is, again, referring to those online conversions. And as you can imagine, this is pretty common. We know tag management systems can be the Wild West of digital marketing, so it's not totally unexpected. Okay, so the foundation of any successful CAPI implementation is really gonna start with that client-side tracking. This is the start of our data journey, and as we'll see, any cracks within that foundation can significantly compromise our entire structure. So, shortcomings in client-side tracking are not just minor setbacks. They could truly derail the effectiveness of your digital marketing strategy, way beyond CAPI implementation. They can lead to things like poor data quality and misguided insights. Some of the more common issues that we see in terms of client-side tracking are gonna be things like mislabeled events, improper triggers, incomplete data, and missing crucial events altogether. CAPI really gives us the opportunity to audit our client-side tracking. So let's make sure we leverage that opportunity and really kind of sniff out some of these errors. In terms of the more common things, improper triggers. Let's give an example here. So let's say you have a conversion that is tied to a successful form submission. Keyword there being successful form submission. So what this is gonna mean is that we have all the data validated, we have things properly formatted, so phone numbers and emails, we have all the required fields in place, so we have all the data necessary to submit this form. And if that is not configured properly, what we're gonna see is that when that it has missing data or improperly inputted data, this is going to trigger, and we don't want that. I'm gonna give the recent example, and we saw this with a client, is that they had their form to submit on form submission, but not successful form submission, and they actually suffered a bot attack, and what we saw was that they had hyper-inflated conversion metrics because of that improper trigger configuration. Another example is going to be around incomplete data. So incomplete data, I'm often referring to the data layer here. So the data layer is the foundation of everything that we do within the client-side tracking, and it should be leveraged appropriately. What we often see is that people are actually implementing techniques like DOM scraping. If you do it, don't tell me, I don't want to know. But that's not ideal. It's definitely a way to have future issues pop up just because it's an unreliable way to gather data. Instead, you should really be leveraging that data layer that your engineers worked really hard to put together. So yes, great. So let's think about the impact of these flaws. Imagine launching a campaign and relying on flawed data to make decisions. That sounds inherently bad. This can not only waste resources, but mislead your strategy, affecting your overall bottom line. And as we've seen, client-side event flaws can significantly disrupt the accuracy and effectiveness of our CAPI implementations, but these errors just don't happen in isolation. They are often symptoms of deeper challenges an organization is facing. And this brings us to our last point, which is going to be resource deficiencies. We found that 78% of organizations suffered from resource deficiencies. You might be asking yourself, what is resource deficiencies? That's exactly what we're going to get into, but it's an all-encompassing term. So it's not just one individual thing, it's a lot of things that some organizations can have currently. So the first resource deficiency that we often see organizations have is inadequate staffing. So organizations often have internal resource shortages, which can significantly hinder their ability to effectively problem solve. What we're talking about here is like really defined Telium champions within your organization. Make sure you have those members that have Telium integrated into their role and responsibilities within your organization so they can see those implementations from the very start to the very end. Another issue that we often see is around upskilling. So upskilling is not about just filling knowledge gaps, it's really about allowing your teams to handle the complexities of these implementations. So it's really about fostering that problem-solving capabilities and adapting to new technologies. And above all else, we've heard this, not in all, like across many presentations this week, but collaboration. So collaboration is so key to what we do. It's not just relying on an individual's expertise, but also how well different teams within that organization work together to accomplish these implementations. Collaboration should be happening among your IT, your data analytics, your marketing, and other relevant teams, because this is so paramount for success, and we cannot stress that enough. And above all, what we would say is when we have the proper resourcing, when we have upskilling, and when we have collaboration, that we need to make sure that meticulous implementation is at the heart of everything that we do. So meticulous implementation should be at the planning, the execution, and the continuous monitoring phase. Because this is how we're going to ensure that we avoid the common pitfalls that we outlined.
All right, well, we've spent some time kind of walking through in detail what these 4 common issues are. We gave you some examples of how they show up. We gave you some examples of how you can tackle these in your organization and overcome them. Let's spend a little bit of time just going through some of these key takeaways. So the first and most important, there's a reason it's at the top of the list. Please remember to collect essential PII when it's available. Remember to take a second, like as you're going through these implementations, remember to take a moment to audit your website, audit the pages that you're firing these conversion events on, make sure that you have a healthy data layer in place and variables there to capture all of that rich customer information when it's available. And then also remember to go back and take a look at your marketing platform pixel settings themselves. There's a lot of small toggles here and there in Meta, in Pinterest, et cetera, that you can easily toggle on to collect and hash information when it's there. So that's a really important step to not forget and look at as you're going through the implementation.
Yes, absolutely. And other takeaways include manage event IDs, so maintaining those unique and consistent event IDs across all your vendor platforms to avoid those things like data conflicts and inflated metrics. Also, once again, we discussed that CAPI is really an opportune time to audit your client-side tracking, so take advantage of that. Regularly check and correct your client-side events for accuracy, including triggers and incomplete data.
Yeah. And regular monitoring is the next really big point. I think we're lucky with where we're at in conversion API technology. It's been around for years. There's a lot of really good insights you can pull out of, for example, tools like Event Stream to monitor your server-side and client-side event volume. We have event match quality within Meta. We have signal resilience within Pinterest. There's a lot of really good, rich detail that you guys can continue to look at and monitor to get ahead of some of these issues that we see. So we recommend setting like a weekly cadence depending on the sophistication of your tracking strategy, but usually a weekly cadence just to go in and take a look at your event match quality and some of these scores that are related to CAPI, just to make sure that you're driving the highest ROI possible for your organization with the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And above all, our last key takeaway is review and update. So we cannot stress this enough. Make sure you're reviewing and updating all those touch points that make up CAPI. This is going to include your tracking setups, your data collection methods, and your compliance measures.
All right, well that wraps up all of the detail that we went through on the presentation. We do want to pause and just open it up. We have some time. So any questions, anything burning from the audience and like what you guys are seeing in your implementations, whether any of this rang true or if you're seeing common challenges, feel free to ask. We'll take any Q&A. All right, we got a question in the back right.
Hello. I've done a few CAPI implementations at this point, and I would say sometimes aligning your server-side event with your client-side event isn't necessarily one-to-one. What benefits or what is the typical gain when you're using, like, have you ever done a pure server-side event implementation, or is both client-side pixel and a server-side pixel absolutely necessary? Because a lot of platforms tell us, hey, CAPI is the future. Don't necessarily need a pixel, so if you get a clean server-side event, you start with your pixels and your deduplication and your remove. But have you guys done anything where it's like just pure server-side?
That's a fantastic question. I'll start with that answer and you could chime in as well. So any web events, as you know, like any website-based events, recommend a better together kind of approach, right? With your client-side tag and also a server-side connector. So you could basically capture the uplift, right? So like client-side event volume is going to be lower, of course, given all of the issues we're facing with signal loss, and client server-side volume will be higher. So you're kind of capturing the difference between the two to get that conversion uplift, and that's highly measurable. I will say we have done some purely server-side conversion tracking, more so in the context of offline conversions. So like securing marketing data from your CRM or store sales usually is kind of the context that we use in purely server-side integrations. But as it stands today, the recommended best practice, as you noted, is still to use kind of a reinforcement approach, right? You're reinforcing your client-side tracking with server-side technology to capture that uplift of otherwise missed conversion events. So hopefully that answers it. Alex, if there's anything to weigh in on.
You covered it, but there was another question, and it was you.
Just wondering about, what are the common kind of must-have roles for really being successful in this area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna take it by the approach of like who owns the platform. So obviously, when we are talking about client-side tracking, whoever owns that tag management system, whether it's TIQ or GTM, that person that is configuring those tags, that is setting up the data layer and configuring those triggers. So that would be a singular role, so someone that tag management system. But on the other side, and this doesn't necessarily have to be that same individual, we need that Telium champion as well, someone that's going to be working with an event stream that knows it well enough to help set that up. So I would say that's the most important. And then John and I work together a lot collaboratively, so making sure you also have that collaboration between your IT team and your marketing team is so incredibly important. And like, because he's always the first step of our CAPI implementations. He's telling me what to do. So I would say those 3 points. John, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think it comes back to the CDP Center of Excellence. Like Alex mentioned, I come from a completely different background, right? I'm all paid media. Alex comes from a developer background, but together, we've worked together to drive success for organizations and like hit on each one of these points to make sure we're getting the ROI that's available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions?
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us
Yes.
today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.